May 31st. Has everybody had a chance to take a look?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Second order of business is, unfortunately, as you all know, we have received a letter of resignation from Mr. Senarizzo to the Town of Acushnet Zoning Board of Appeals. Dear members of the Acushnet Zoning Board of Appeals, it is with great sadness I'm informing you of my resignation from this board effective August 1st, 2022. It has been my privilege to serve my fellow Acushnet residents for many years. My current health unfortunately requires my full attention, and I can no longer devote the necessary time to serve on this board. I want to thank the residents of Acushnet for allowing me to participate in making our town a better place to live. I'm also thankful to the members of this board, past and present, for the opportunity to serve. It has been an honor to work amongst those who work tirelessly to ensure Acushnet is a safe community. Sincerely, Mark Senarizzo. Need a motion to accept, even though there's nothing we can do about it, so.
Unfortunately, make a
Unfortunately.
motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mark will be very missed.
Yes.
Mark was an asset to this board as well as the town, having served many years on the planning board as well. He brought a lot of knowledge over across the path, so sorry to have him go.
Yep. Be missed.
That brings us to our appointments. Just so everybody's aware, the second case, Verizon Wireless, has asked to go last instead of second this evening, just so that we can put the other two cases ahead and move them along quickly, hopefully in an effort that we can get all three done this evening. If there's people outside that can't be heard or can't be part of the meeting, we're not gonna be able to hold it this evening, and we'll have to put it off. So I'm hoping maybe we can do it case by case, and anyone who's here for the first case, make sure they're in the building, and then hopefully when we get to the last case, some people may have gone and we'll be able to take care of everything this evening. Does anybody have any objections or questions? Okay, we're gonna go to the first case, case 2.220920A, case of James Medeiros of 41 Tabor Street, Fairhaven, Mass., who's petitioning the board for a variance to be able to construct a storage building to house equipment and supplies at map 15, lot 74A, Anthony Street. This request is being made under the provisions of section 332BV District E, Development Standards 7, Municipal Water and Sewer, A, conform to Mass Title 5, and 9, minimum land area. Mr. Medeiros, are you in the house? You have the podium. We usually start with you to let us know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
And we have your application in front of us.
What I'm doing is I'm proposing this building for general vehicle space, hard material. This is material that are going to be used on upcoming jobs, and right now it seems to be a bit of an eyesore. We've grown a bit in the past 4 years, where one pallet has become 4, and one mixer now has become like 5. And there's 4 vehicles that are all registered and insured that sit on the property. And at times, alarms will go off. And I have a really good neighbor behind me who calls me up. I live 3 minutes away. I just come over. So I'm looking to just try to put everything inside this building. I don't have any use for bathrooms, any use for water. So we excluded any type of Title V septic system, and hoping I can just put this building there for, presentable, a little cleaner, keep all the pallets behind the building. That's what I'm looking to do.
According to Jim and the bylaws, the issue is all buildable lots are required to connect to municipal sewer and water as approved by the department. of Public Works or have a Title V system. So he's looking to do a storage building that doesn't include this, and he's gonna need the board to give him permission to build without having any access to septic. Can you tell me if there's septic available on the street?
If there's septic available, I couldn't tell you, but what I see from all my neighbors that there is, they all, operate with septic systems.
The rest of the neighbors have septic?
Yes.
Sewer down there.
No sewer.
Okay.
Yeah, no sewer coming down Anthony. Right.
You don't have a plot plan?
We have a plot plan.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's no,
Usually that shows.
there's not, no, it doesn't show a stub or anything, no.
Here it is, yeah.
I guess my question was future use, if the building became something else, could he put it? Now, I get you're just storing there, so you drop off some vehicles and you come and go. Where is the business located? Where,
So, yeah, that's the thing. So I operate out of Fairhaven, which is 3 minutes down the road. I'm on Tabor Street in Fairhaven. And the name of the business is Seaside Masonry. So we do, we do a lot of the local work and, all the Chick-fil-A's, the Aspen Dentals in the area. Our yard is stationed in Acushnet. We're there at 5 a.m. We're gone by 5:30. And we arrive somewhere between 4 and 4:30. And that's the only time we're there. We have 2 vehicles that park out front now. But the business is located in Fairhaven, out of my permanent residence.
so when you show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, none of these employees ever need a bathroom?
No, because they just jump into transportation vehicles and they take off to coffee shops and hit the road. Yeah, they're literally there for 15 minutes tops in the morning.
Are there any abutters here? No abutters for Anthony Street to discuss whether or not they like or don't like the idea of this project? We haven't heard from any abutters. I don't have a big issue. So how long have you been operating out of this area?
I've been there for since 2017. I bought I'm leasing. I mortgaged the property from Dennis Arsenal, who's the owner. I have a mortgage with him, and we're looking to close out that mortgage by the end of middle of next year or the end of this year. We should be cleaned up with that mortgage payment. I have.
But you are the owner of the property?
Yeah, I'm on the deed of the land.
My biggest concern is bathrooms.
Yeah.
You can't, stop popping buildings up without bathrooms or, because exactly the future use, and now you grow bigger, now you get a bigger building, and now somebody else buys that property, and who knows where that goes. Now, land doesn't look like it has big enough land for a perk test or a Title V.
No, but if it's in the street, that's kind of my concern is, if it's already there and there's sewer available, why wouldn't we want it,
Yeah, there's no sewer down there.
On the street?
No sewer down that street, I believe.
I thought that's what we just discussed, is that there was sewer down
Well,
there.
Anthony Street's right out the.
Yeah, there's no sewer down
No
Anthony
sewer down
Street.
there.
It's, all the neighbors are operating with septic
It is
systems.
septic, okay. I was taking that the opposite way, okay.
I mean, my plan on that is if I would ever have to put bathrooms in it, or if, someone in the future, if I ever sell the building and they would want bathrooms in this building, we could, we're not too far off of Main Street, and we can put a force flex and send it out, with a pressure pump. I don't know much, I don't know much on how it works, but this is what I was told. If I, in the future, ever wanted to put a bathroom in there, I could just tie in. I would have to pay for the utilities to go up the street, but I could, go ahead and put a force flex into the system, which would then give me the okay to have a bathroom.
That would be up to the Board of Health.
But we're not, I don't see, we have our offices on 10 North 6th Street in New Bedford. We've been there for 4 years as well. We don't intend on leaving.
Okay, I think there's one up.
Yeah, we occupy a little bit of space in downtown, and that's where we intend on staying. We don't plan on coming over. Anthony Street is gonna be used for exactly what it is now, just basically a storage. That's what it's been for 4 years, but
So I got custom auto sales on the corner over there. Are you on that side of the street or the opposite?
that's right, right. I abut the backside of Custom Auto.
So you have the second lot down.
Correct. Yeah. There's a little tiny lot in between us, but I'm not sure who owns that, but there's a very little tiny driveway.
I don't know, gentlemen.
You really need a building, can't get by with a fenced-in area?
I'm,
Well, we own a grout pump. It's an industrial pump. It's a very expensive unit. There's a dump truck, brand new dump, relatively new. It's 2021. All of the vehicles are 2019 and up. So there's a little bit of the security issue as well. My neighbor behind me, Larry, who's really good to me, he calls me up. He says, "Hey, listen, alarm's going off 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock." It's happened 3 or 4 times. One time only did we have a break-in, in 4 years. So we're not so much worried about the security. It's more of the grout pump being exposed to weather, and a couple of the neighbors, had commented if I had a better place for it. So I received a letter, and I'm trying to address, that's the main goal, is trying to get all the equipment in this building, which will then, again, take it out of the weather, and get these vehicles in the building, so that way they're not at a threat.
Do you plan on servicing your vehicles there?
I do not service my vehicles there, no. I service my vehicles all at the, my Sunoco. Yeah.
I think we got all the information we need.
Yeah.
It's,
My biggest
not,
thing's the bathroom.
not allowed by town bylaws to construct a building without the bathroom. He's asking for a waiver of that. Personally, I would feel better if the Board of Health was on board with a waiver
Yeah,
versus
right.
myself.
At least get the
Right.
permits ready for the force main or something, make sure that's even viable.
So the use you have, what you're using it for now is essentially going to be the same, except now there will be a building there.
That's correct. Yeah, the same thing. Just no pallets, no visible machinery and vehicles.
Does that not set a precedent?
And we might as well get a pool shed, you can get a pool shed and, go to the bathroom in it, and it just opens up a big can.
Right. Definitely precedent for me. I've never had it come across. It does sound like, even if we have the authority, it should be something we have the Board of Health's approval on. Maybe the thing to do would be to get, if he gets a recommendation from the Board of Health, we could be more inclined to say yes. If the Board of Health doesn't agree that it's a good idea, then I think we'd be inclined to say no.
All right, I make a motion, put it on hold until you get further information from the Board of Health.
I think what we're saying is if you'd like to continue the meeting till the next time, and you can bring us something from the Board of Health.
Yep.
Telling us that they don't have a problem with it, I think we'd be more
Be more
inclined to
comfortable to vote, yeah.
move
Right.
forward.
Sure.
Okay.
If you can't get something from the Board of Health, I think it would probably be a no from us, because it is their jurisdiction to make sure, that it's sanitary. So,
Good enough.
would you like to continue to the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay. Next meeting will be, because we're gonna continue, we have to name time, and it will be the third Thursday. I did write down
Thursday?
I'm sorry, third Tuesday
In October?
in October, which is the 17th, I believe. Just to keep it a month from now, in case there's any other new business coming in. I'll double check that date. October 18th is the third Tuesday in October. October 18th,
October
6:30
I'll come in with
on
some,
the agenda. And if
some
you can bring
information from the
something
Board of
from the
Health.
Board of Health
Yeah.
saying that they support this, I think we'd feel more comfortable
Good enough.
taking it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is continued. I do need a motion in a second, please, to continue.
I'll make a motion to continue.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
That's
So moved.
Thank you. Find that.
Mr. Ayers, just come over here. What shall I do, sign this? I'm gonna do two, one for you, one for me. Sign.
Next case, as we're gonna skip over Verizon and come right back to it. Case of Timothy Blanchard at 18 Larroquin Avenue, who's petitioning the board for a 1,281 square foot variance to be able to construct a 34 by 50 accessory building at 248 Main Street. This request is being made under the provisions of section 331E.
Thank
Tim?
you. See you soon.
You got the floor.
So we marked down a 24 by 24 detached garage, put up a, let's say 23, we changed it. I think it was 34 by 50.
We don't have plans for the garage. Do you have plans for the garage?
And on our
34
name.
by 50.
Okay.
Is it 24 by 50?
34.
34, yeah. So you put a mobile home in there and a couple cars.
I believe from texts I'm getting back and forth from Jim and Madison, you're aware that this variance is like almost 100% over. According to this, the biggest thing is the impervious surface. Allowed is 4,485 square feet. And it would need a variance of 4,179 square feet. So you're talking about 80% more than what's allowed.
There's three different variances on this.
There is.
Building, yeah. That's quite a bit.
There is an existing building,
It's in conformance.
which I'm not sure is in conformance, but it is because it's existing.
Yeah.
It was existing prior, looking to remove and replace, so. Yeah, I don't know, it just, are there any abutters? Any abutters who'd like to speak at all? For or against? So, again, looks like taking down a garage, putting up a fairly considerably sized bigger barn. I do know the property because it sits right over there at Pope Park, so I've seen the RV in the driveway next to the building, so, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be any worse off with the RV in a garage rather than in the driveway next to the garage, but according to our bylaws, it is more impervious surface that we're covering. I don't know if there's anything that can be done to the property to get more groundwater in, or if we're concerned with that, or. How you guys feel about it? Again, it's existing, I don't see anybody here saying they don't want it, but there are a few variances. So the floor area is, kind of goes along with the impervious surface, just meaning you're putting a lot of building on a smaller lot. I think them two are kind of one and the same. looks like the issue with the first one is because he has 117.7 feet of frontage, and with the older lots, we go by 10%. He's gonna have 11 feet 2 inches instead of 11 feet 7 inches. So I don't think the 5 inches is a real concern on that first one.
No.
So really, it's just the size of the building, both in square footage, floor area, and lot coverage. Does it need to be this
I could
big?
probably get down like 30. What about, I mean, what was that, 34 right now?
34 by 30.
28 or something, 30?
By 50.
The,
I mean, the
the
50 is
issue we
definitely
have
important.
is when we're doing variances, they shouldn't come in at double what you allow.
Yeah.
We're gonna take into consideration there's already a building there and you're removing it, replacing it, but you're still covering, you're almost doubling the size of that building. If you stayed with the width and doubled the length to 50 IV, you know, maybe it would work. Mike's not here with you to,
No,
I don't know if, you know,
we kind of talked about it earlier. Maybe get down like 28 or something like that. That would work.
what's the existing garage?
24 by 24. Mm.
So if you went to 28 by 50, you still
Still a
fit
good
it.
sized garage.
You
yeah.
get rid of the first variance, you have no lot line issue now
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you've come in quite a few feet, and you put the footage a little more reasonable.
Makes sense.
You gentlemen want to consider 28 by 50 versus
Consider that.
34 by 50.
Make a motion on that?
Do you want us to consider 28 by 50?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, bigger the better, but I mean.
Is that a
I'm not
motion,
fighting
Chuck?
on that, right?
Make a motion, yes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve this downsizing from the 34-foot petition for, we lose 6 feet on that, and go to 50, you know, keep it at the 50 feet. Motion and a second. The only thing I'm gonna ask in that is if you can include in that motion to come in at least 4 feet from the property line and 2 feet from the pool, because I have issues with it on both
Yeah,
sides.
it's definitely close to the pool.
Okay?
Right.
So can we
makes sense.
make this so that we go to 28 feet, increasing it on both lot lines? From the right side lot line, we're gonna give them 2 more feet, and then on the left side, we'll give them 4 more feet, so you'll have over 15 feet from the lot line, which is more in tune with our bylaws.
All right.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You good?
I get that.
All right. I'm gonna go out too, you can keep going, and then I'll keep going.
All right, our third and final case this evening, listed as the second case on our roster here.
Okay.
Thanks for waiting, gentlemen. I do hope that we can get everybody who's interested in this inside the doors comfortably without overflowing the room, so that we can hold this hearing.
Okay.
I think there's enough, there's plenty of room here more forward, and there's some chairs stacked up. We could just bring a few chairs to the front and have everybody get inside the room. Need another chair? I'll just stand. Gentlemen, you mind taking a few chairs from the back there and bringing them out to the front here so people can sit? I know that everybody's in the room. we making out there? We gonna be able to get everybody in here and comfortable to hold this meeting? I see Selectman Gasper back there. We got everybody in the room.
I
We-
have two behind, 2.5.
I don't wanna hold the hearing if we can't get in here
Two
legitimately.
chairs over there.
There's another chair.
We got some more chairs in the room.
Go ahead.
Everybody okay? All right, third case. 20220, oh, I'm sorry. Case B, which we're doing third, case 2022-0920B, case of Celco Partnership, DBA Verizon Wireless, CO Gehring and Associates LLC, is petitioning the Board of Selectmen for a special permit for the construction of a 150-foot communications tower located at 207 Leonard Street. This request is being made under the provisions of section 33C, 10, and 34.
Good evening,
Yeah,
Mr.
floor.
Chair. Carl Gehring on behalf of Verizon. I gave you a sheet there. I'm joined by Rich Prosciutto representing Verizon. He may have stepped outside. Real Estate Department. Mark Carenti, Real Estate Appraiser. Don Hayes, Certified Health Physicist. Doug Shadell, Noise Expert. And Keith Valenti, RF, a radio frequency engineer. Where's Keith? Anyway, there, he may be outside to save space.
Well, why don't you guys who were gonna speak just come up and grab seats up
Well,
front?
Well, they're only gonna speak if I'm
required.
gonna try to
Okay.
run the thing, and so we'll keep them out. But
Okay.
I introduced them because this is I see you have the notebooks there, which I appreciate. This has been a team effort among all those folks, all these experts. I'll be the spokesperson, I'll run you through it.
Okay.
And what I found is helpful is if you can give me the floor, let me go through the contents of the application. But before I do that, I want to set the tone. I want to, when you mention cell tower, there's a lot of hand-wringing and concern, a lot of misinformation. So basically, this is a half-baked model. It's basically a desk pen that I epoxied in place and spray painted gray. But this is what we're proposing, is a tall pole upon which we hang antennas. And this is actually accurate in the sense that the tall pole has we dig out a cellar hole, form up a big block of concrete that basically acts as a counterweight. That's covered over, you don't even see that. Then in the middle, there's a fat, like a sonotube, but 5-6 feet in diameter with anchor bolts. The pole is bolted to that. An antenna array platform is put up there, and then the antennas are on there, and equipment at the base, you turn the switch and your phone works. It's basically a tall pole with antennas, that's all. There's nothing mysterious about it. As far as planning and zoning and land use permitting and site plan review, this is less complicated than building a single-family home. There's no water, there's no sewer, there's no lawn, there's no deck, there's no commotion. Once it's built, nothing happens. It's an inanimate object. It's a utility structure that sits out there. It's like the Wi-Fi router for the neighborhood,
No
basically.
noise,
I'm sorry?
no noise.
Noise is a non-issue, and I'm going to
Yeah.
get into all that. I've addressed all these concerns, and I've heard them all. I've been doing this for a long time. And so basically, it's just a pole that you hang antennas off. There's nothing mysterious about it. And there's more activity. Once that's built, once in a while, once a month, somebody might show up and check on it. During construction, obviously, there would be activity, just like there would be construction for an addition on a home or a new garage or these things you just approved here this evening. However, once it's built, nothing goes on out there. Once a month, somebody will show up in just a regular passenger vehicle, SUV or pickup truck. It could be like the Acushnet having a guest over or something. There's no commotion. It just hangs out there. Whereas a single-family home, you build anything anywhere on a vacant lot or something that isn't there now, people that have been there for a long time will not like it. That's human nature. I get that. I live in a neighborhood too. But my point is that there's less commotion and activity with one of these. It's just a utility structure sitting out there, unlike a single-family home next door, which could be, depending on who moves in, very annoying. If they have a dog that barks all night, or they leave the spotlight over the garage on all night, it shines in your bedroom, or they're constantly having parties. Nothing goes on out there after this is built. So you have a lot of information there. I'm going to go through it very quickly, but I want to do so, and I found by touching on it, by hitting all the points, I'll a lot of times answer many of your questions in advance. The second page of my cover sheet I describe why we're doing it. We need a site in the area. We have a problem. And some folks in here may say, what do you mean? I have 3 bars down there. I made a call this afternoon. We're going to get into that. There's a reason behind all that. There's a lot of stuff that's counterintuitive that we in our industry are privy to that if you're not in what we're doing, it may not make sense, but I'm gonna try to explain it. Under section 2 is our statement, the number 1 actually is our town forms, straight special permit. You cited those corrections to the bylaw correctly. I want to also point out Mass General Law 48, because we're asking for a special permit. And then I cited the Telecommunications Act of 1996. The reason I put that in there is just to make the board aware we are a little bit different than the normal applicant off the street, the gentleman that was just in here asking for a variance. You know, we're a little bit different in the sense that we are a federal licensee and we're afforded certain protections under our federal law that behave like an overlay district over the whole town, an overlay district over the entire county, the entire state, the entire country. This is going on in town halls all over the country like this. People trying to, wireless folks trying to fill in the gaps. And that's what we're trying to do. There's this densification of the network going on where when wireless first came out in the 80s, it was analog cellular. The signal went a long time, and all it was doing was talking, and it was a big bag phone or a clunky phone that was bolted into your car. Less prevalent among the population, sort of a luxury. And when I was early on doing this, people would say, what's this going to do for us? Because just to build out a network, you start by building it on the highway networks. Then you go to secondary roads and so forth. So early on, there was a conception, what's that going to do for the town of Acushnet? You're just building it on the highway with people passing through. Now, we are much, it's several generations further in the technology and so forth. So mobile phones are so much more prevalent. We've got our network on the highway built out. We're filling in all the dead spots in people's backyards. People say, why are you putting someone's backyard? Because we're trying to cover your house. We're trying to cover all of the population, every square inch, and it's bit by bit, site by site. And you may hear some folks see these plots and say, well, that's not going to cover over on such and such road. We get that. It's one site at a time. We're here tonight. And the other thing is there's a misconception that wireless carriers are these deep pockets, spend money, and it doesn't matter. We're a business like anyone else. Headquarters gives us a budget every year, and the hard choices have to be made on what sites we build. And Acushnet made the cut. There's a lot of people competing for the money that we're spending here because we need a site here. And it's fueled by customer complaints. People think, I called the 800 number and I was on hold for it. If you get through and you have a complaint with your Verizon service that you're not getting through, you're dropping calls, that takes note. People take note of that, and eventually it filters through folks like Mr. Valenti's crew and the RF. They're like, we got a problem, what are you going to do about it? Then the file gets passed to Mr. Prosciutto's crew. They go out in the street, they look for someplace where we get within the parameters where we need a site, where we can lease it, and then the file eventually gets passed to me. I'm just the planning and zoning guy. I'm kind of the end of the line here. When I get done, then it gets passed off to construction. They build it, but that's a long process. It's all evolved by complaints and realization, hey, there's a problem, and there's only so much money to go around in Massachusetts, and the Acushnet made the cut. We got to spend money in Acushnet. We got to take care of this. That's how serious this is. We hear people say, I don't need the site. We don't waste money practicing. We wouldn't be dragging all these people out and spending all this money in engineering if we did not need this site. I can assure you that. They don't just do this willy-nilly. These guys are very good at what they do. Under number 2 is our statement of support, where I've gone through your bylaw and addressed every single point line by line. Now, you don't have a separate wireless bylaw, that's fine, but you do have the provision that if a structure is to be built higher than 65 feet, then under the Telecommunications Act, which is we qualify, we could ask for a special permit, which is what we're doing. So I've analyzed that and then gone into the special permit analysis. The special permit analysis, again, doesn't really apply to, it applies, however, we're a non-use in the sense that, it says it should not be in conflict with public safety and convenience and welfare. We promote the public health and safety and convenience and welfare. We're communications. We're offering to build infrastructure in the town of Acushnet at no cost to the taxpayers that will benefit the town of Acushnet at no cost to anyone other than someone being upset that they can see something that didn't used to be there. And I get that. I'm not going to get an argument with anyone who says they think the thing looks ugly. That's personal taste. Everyone has the right to believe that. But we're providing necessary infrastructure, and the bylaw goes on to say, shall not be substantially detrimental or offensive to the neighborhood. Substantially, and it's the general rule and like findings and so forth, which your board is familiar with, is what you're doing more beneficial than its detriment. In our case, we say yes. This is communications. Most 911 calls now are made on cell phones. A lot of young couples, they don't even bother with a landline anymore. So we feel that we're providing a service, a benefit. Whether you folks are personally enamored with your wireless device, it's undeniable. The public as a whole has become much more enamored with and attached to and reliant on the wireless connectivity. And especially with COVID, it showed us with remote learning and remote working and so forth, you need connectivity. This will replace the big problem we're having in town right there. which I'm gonna get to. Number 3 is on permission of our landowner. We have a simple leasehold interest in a tiny little postage stamp sized plot with a right to get back there. The plans show an easement going back there. There's no, I was explaining to one of the abutters what that all means. That's more like a, not a fiction, I would say, but it's more to put on notice, on our notice of lease in the land records, that we have the right to get back to that site from the public way. There's no new curb cut going in, there's no new driveway. In many towns, this is not even, this, as I was saying, this is a non-use, it's accessory, it's a utility thing. We don't need to have a separate situation back there. We just need to be able to get to it and have the right to say we are allowed to get there from the public way. So we put that on all our plans now because we've had problems in the past where without marking that, property gets sold, someone else gets it, and then all of a sudden Verizon, they say, hey, Verizon, you're this little landlocked thing back there. We're not going to allow you back there. So we make sure we're very clear up front. We have a lease to that little spot in the very rear of the property with the right to go in their driveway to get back to it. Okay, and that's the leasehold interest from the Acushnet right there. Under number 4, I put this in all my applications as sort of a matter of course. It's just the field card, tax map, and deed of the subject property, so you can familiarize yourself with it if you haven't already, and I'm sure you know the site. And then under number 5 are the FCC licenses. Now I put those in for 2 reasons. One, to point out and put on the record that we are FCC licensees and therefore are afforded those protections under federal law that I alluded to. However, I also put it in there to show you that if you look at these, there's 6 of them. We have 6 licenses. Back in the day, we only had 1 or 2. Verizon is like multiple carriers all in one. There's so much going on with voice and data and streaming and all these things. We got a lot going on, and every single one of these licenses has the protection under federal law to fill significant gaps and provide coverage. The town cannot prohibit or effectively prohibit. They cannot consider the environmental effects of health and radiation and so forth, and all these licenses. But the other thing that's interesting, they're radio station licenses. If you look at that, it says FCC radio station authorization with a call sign. Like here's the 700 megahertz C block call sign WQJQ 689. That's a big hit station for us. That's what you talk on. It's WQJQ 689 is what your talking station, which you as a customer don't know that. You just dial the phone and it works. And then we have KNKA 251, that's this, Beach B-Block cellular. These are all radio station licenses. We are a radio station. It just happens to be 2-way radio. Like the old-fashioned walkie-talkies, you'd have one and your kids would play with them. We're just a modern high-tech version of a walkie-talkie, basically. It's 2-way radio. There's nothing mysterious about this. And so we have the radio station, the FCC tells us, here's your call sign, here's your power, here's what you can broadcast at, and they regulate all that, and we can't go beyond that. There's no way the equipment could ever malfunction and exceed that. If we did anything, if Verizon ever did anything to jeopardize that, that's their lifeblood, these licenses. They would never do anything to jeopardize that. This is how they stay in business. So they take that very seriously, operating within the terms of their license, and they all do. It's very low power. I've heard the other analogy that this is like a low-powered college radio station where the signal doesn't go much beyond the campus. It's a weak signal because that's why we need these things all over the place now. Under number 6 is the report of Mr. Valenti, the RF engineer. Now, there's a lot of stuff in there, and you've done wireless sites before, so I know you're familiar with those, but I think the best one, if picture tells 1,000, picture tells 1,000 words, or this one here, this attachment C and D, this tells it all, because I've had people say, I made a call out there. What do you need this site for? Here's what's going on. If you see the site, this is this subject property called Acushnet 2. Right, and this red is coming off what we call the Acushnet Alpha. When you see a cell tower, when you have the little triangular platform, there's alpha, beta, gamma. Those are just bunch of antennas face 0 degrees. You go 100, that's alpha, 120 degrees is beta, another 120 degrees, so at 240 would be gamma, roughly. You try to get 360 degree coverage around the compass. This Acushnet site down here is on Mendel Road. You guys have seen that, and I'm going to give you a picture of it. All 3 of these things here, there's 3 sites that are being, I'm giving you a copy for the record of everything, Mr. Chairman. But and you can share that with the picture of that Mendel one is also in the real estate report later, but this Mendel Road one, big old tower, that's this Acushnet site, and it is providing the service up here, way over here, it's a couple miles away, up to this subject area, as well as this site down here called New Bedford 5. That's the next page, this stinky little thing. And if you're familiar with the area, you may have driven by that and seen that down there. It's this stinky little tower down there on at 2014 Ashley Boulevard. We're only at 60 feet on that thing. On the Mendel, we're at 183 feet. So that tells me that Mendel tower is at least 190, close to 200 feet or whatever. The one in New Bedford, only 60. And then there's this East Freetown site, is the last one, which is that big, guy-wired radio tower. You've probably seen that, right? That's way up here. That's this light blue. It's kind of off the chart. But you can see the light blue, the red, and the yellow. Those are kind of, and the red and orange. That's what's kind of covering the area right now. And you can say, all right, what's the problem? The problem is those sites aren't designed to do that. There's this phenomenon in our industry called footprint shrinkage, where there's a finite amount of power that's given off by these cell sites. The more people that get on, we can't crank the power. We're limited by the FCC. This is what it is. So the more people that get on, they use up all the bandwidth, and then that's it. You start to drop your call. You can't make a call, and that's what's happening now. These sites are so far away. Now, back in the day, they weren't far away. Back when it was analog, that one site could broadcast, and probably one of these is one of the earlier ones that's like, that was no problem. But then as more people get on the line, more users subscribe, it sucks up the bandwidth and shrinks the footprint down, and now you start to drop calls. So that footprint shrinkage is what we're troubled with here. That's the big problem. That's what the network guys behind the scenes are like. We got a big problem. And Acushnet, people up on the golf course, and these areas are using up bandwidth, and it's sucking it away from this Acushnet site and this one over here, and then the people in those neighborhoods can't make a call. It's like totally screws the whole thing up. So what we're proposing is this, and see how that fills in that blob? Now, a lot of people will say, have all kinds of ideas, tell us how to do our business. Why did you put it there? You should have put it over here. And they'll have all these suggestions, which we appreciate. We always look for willing landowners or ideas. Maybe we missed something. However, this is a real specialized field, as you can imagine. Like in any business, they have real estate requirements. So if you have a business where you need a lot of traffic and visibility, you want a high volume street for their signage and so forth. If you have a business that deals with heavy equipment or a lot of bulk things where you need rail or you may need a rail spur or a loading dock or whatever. There's certain requirements. Wireless, what they need are latitude, longitude, and height above sea level. That's how they pick these sites. They're connecting dots in the air. Basically, the train is all down here, and these RF guys are in the office with computer modeling and topo maps and a network of where the sites are now. And you got a dot here, it's 183 feet, and then you got another one here, this one's only 60. That's above ground, but they go above sea level is the way they coordinate. They keep it all kind of in an even plane. And they say, all right, we got this problem where New Bedford 5 is feeding it over there, but this Acushnet one's really doing most of it. So we can't be too far enough. We started out looking up here. I know there's a tower that Vertex approved in Quaker Lane. There's also an existing old Coast Guard tower where we looked at those. They're way out of the way. The real estate person suggested those because sometimes, if there's a tower there, even though it's technically outside the search area, you ought to suggest it and let the guy maybe sharpen his pencil and see if he can use it. And they said, no, that's like, you're crazy. That Vertex thing, forget about it. Not only is it not built yet, that's way out of the way. That Coast Guard tower is too far away, and that's got tidal problems and all kinds of issues that we didn't even want to bother getting into because it's not in the right location. We need to be down here. We're trying to cover the school and the golf course. And you look at where we are and where we need to be. So there are suggestions that, okay, well, this isn't going to solve problems over here. We get that. There's still problems. That's what I mentioned earlier. This is one site at a time, bit by bit. But I wanted to, but this I think is the graphic that really tells the picture. This is now. So when there's, like, say, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no one on the network, yeah, you might get a good signal out here because it's unimpeded. But if there's a prop during the day when there's a lot of activity, or if there's an accident and a bunch of people are making calls off of this one, that's when these shrink down. And these blobs, it's hard to show in computer modeling what's going on in the real world with radio waves, but these blobs sort of show, but they pulse, nobody on the network, it might go up a little bit. A lot of people, it might shrink down. So this is what we need in the near future to solve this problem. And I think that graphic does a good job of showing it right there. And so we picked a site. Now, could we go somewhere else? Yeah, we could go next door. We could go across the street. We could go 2 doors down, but we can't go a quarter mile away. We can't go, that's where we appreciate people suggesting, oh, you consider this and that. These real estate guys know what they're doing. They've been doing it a long time. This is all they do is this wireless stuff, and they know that the search area, the RF folks give them, okay, you need to concentrate in here, try to find first an existing tower or a water tank or a tall building or something you can go on. If you can't find any of those, then okay, it's a raw land site. And then if it's raw land, meaning a new tower, we don't want to build in wetlands. We don't want to have to cross wetlands if we can help it. We'd like utilities nearby. We don't want to take a bunch of trees down and build a 1,000-foot road and clear cut, if we can avoid it. We have done all those things depending on the situation. Here, this is perfect. It's a clear site. Driveway's already in there, pretty much cleared back to where we want to be. So the tower will be tucked off in the rear. There's utilities on site. There are wetlands on either side. We made sure we sited it away from the resources, and I'll show you that when we get to the plans. I mean, it's an ideal site, really. The next report, number 7, is the report of Mr. Hayes, certified health physicist. Now, as the board is aware, under federal law, the discussion of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions is off limits to the board. You cannot consider that in your deliberations to the extent we comply. However, if I just stop there, people will be like, well, what's he hiding or what? So out of courtesy to the board, out of courtesy to the members of the public, without waiving any of our rights or protections under federal law, because we cannot get into a big health discussion. The whole purpose of that law that was enacted in 1996 was prior to that, all these hearings would fall apart because of all these misconceptions and wild conspiracies about the environmental effects of radio frequency. And the Congress said, enough, that you can't even get into that, but you can ask the carrier to prove they're compliant. All right, so we hired this independent guy. Rather than ask Verizon to police themselves, we hired this guy to analyze the situation. If you look at, he boils it all down with all the math there. But then if you look on page 8, that chart, where he has 2 charts, one above the other. The top one, it shows the graph going up, and the highest value is 0.51%, so less than 1%. That's with just a tower with only Verizon on it. What that means is it's less than 1%. We're less than 1% of the limit, so you could have 99 more towers in that same spot and still be compliant, which is a ridiculous and absurd number because there aren't 99 additional wireless carriers. There's only a handful. The next chart down shows that if you loaded it up with everyone, so all the other carriers, hypothetically, we don't have anyone else interested, but say they were and they came on, okay, then it goes up to 3.4%. That's still less than 4%. That means you could have 25 more fully loaded monopoles, which wouldn't fit there, and it'd be ridiculous. I'm just doing that as a point to emphasize that the RF is a non-issue. And another thing, just to explain what these numbers mean, that 1% everything, the feds, they determine where, at what level, not the feds, they go out to people who are experts in the health field and so forth. Because the FCC, they're just radio frequency regulators, but they go out to the public, out to the health experts and say, what is the limit where it is unsafe? And they go 10 times below that for members of the workforce, OSHA, people that work in the radio frequency field. And they go another 5 times below that for this limit for the health. So basically, this 2%, this 3% is 3% of 2%. It's so far down and low that it's a complete non-issue. And the other thing I want to point out is that, wireless devices have been around for over 100 years. Old man Marconi and the telegraph and all that. And I want to share these. I think I have additional copies of this one. This is something I put together in response to some questions I had from someone that I was talking to. Do you have towers near other, near residences and near where people work and so forth? So I put this little thing together, and basically, this tower up here, see that tall one, this little inside, this big tall thing, that's on Edgartown and Martha's Vineyard. It looks like it's off in the middle of nowhere, but it's not. This is where it is, right in the back of this neighborhood, surrounded by homes, where the median price out there is like $900,000 or whatever for a house. Okay, it's right there. It's been there forever. It just becomes part of the landscape. People don't even notice it anymore. Now, if you were living there when they built it, I'm sure you'd be upset. Like, what the heck's that thing out there? But my point is that someone come in and after the fact, there it is. It's part of the landscape. They don't have those same emotions. Here's a bunch of residences, high-end, nice, in Andover. Look at that big old tower back by their fitness center. This is a hospital. This is a Yale New Haven Hospital building down in Rhode Island. Look at all these antennas right up on the roof of the hospital. You think the doctors and all the hospital administration would allow that if there was any problem? We have a wireless system in Mass General Hospital. If you've ever been in the hospital and you're using your device while you're waiting for your your spouse or patient or whomever, you know, how do you think you're getting that signal? They don't go in through a concrete building grill. We have an interior wireless network. There's antennas on the roof of that hospital. The one right below it are antennas at a high school stadium where the high school wanted, I don't know if that's the case here, but I've seen this, that's a picture of them, but I've seen this where high school wants to put lights up, they don't have any money, the carrier says, we'll build them for you if you can let us put us antennas up there. It works for everybody. Now everyone in the stands gets connectivity, the school gets connectivity. And then look at this thing, look at this monstrosity right next to this little park here. So my point is, this is part of the fabric of our society, whether you like it or not, or whether you use wireless or not. It's something that's not going away. Telephone poles are all, every 100 feet down all our streets. These things we need every couple miles and so forth. And it's just become part of who we are and where we live. So they're completely safe. And the other thing I want to just say, I don't want to get into a health discussion, but anecdotally, I'll take my Verizon hat off and put on just my private citizen hat. I was at a seminar in Washington, D.C. one time, and the topic was, it was a bunch of different classes and everything, and the one topic was this RF engineer talking about if you're afraid of this RF, you don't have to be, but if you are, you actually do want the tower in your backyard. And everyone's like, what? It's counterintuitive. And what he was explaining was, when you turn on your phone, there are two channels at play there. There's the one that you talk and listen on and all that. There's another hidden channel. The network is tracking where you go. Even if you turn off location service, the network has to know where you are to know how to pass you off if you're driving. They need to know, all right, he's on Route 195 going east, and then they'll pass you off to the next site and so forth. Okay, they just turned left, now they're going north. Okay, we'll pass you over here. So the network's keeping track of that. And the network powers your phone up and down depending on how far away you are. So if you're really far away from a site, the network tells your phone, I can't hear you, speak up, and it powers your phone up. The phone gets really hot, the battery doesn't last very long because it's trying to make that connection. You have this handset trying to talk two-way radio, walkie-talkie, to this thing that's way over there. Whereas if you have the tower right in your backyard, the network says, I can hear you, quiet down, and it powers your phone down, your phone stays nice and cool, the battery lasts all day. And his point, and then he did this chart of all the different stuff floating around and out there. AM, like if we had a device that could pick it up right now, there'd be AM, FM, police, fire, GPS, VHF, UHF, satellite radio, all this stuff's floating around out there. We're just another one of those signals. Why we get the bad rap? It's like we in the industry are like mind-boggled. Like what? Nobody has a problem with any of this other stuff. And some of the carriers are using what used to be UHF television station frequencies for their 5G. And some of your Wi-Fi routers in your houses may be on a 5G frequency. It's just radio waves, a garage door opener, a baby monitor, a clicker. These are all wireless devices that we live amongst and around. So we have stated to our record through Mr. Hayes' report that we are compliant with all regulations to RF emissions. It's a complete non-issue. Under number 7 is Dr. Hayes. Number 8 is the FAA report. If you put a tall structure in the air, you got to prove you're not going to be an obstruction to air navigation. So we're going up to this height. We got clearance that we don't have to have a light on it. It's not going to interfere with airplanes and so forth. So that's a non-issue. Under number 9 is the report of Mr. Shadell, the noise expert, the acoustical expert. The tower itself doesn't give off any kind of a noise. And there's two sources of noise. We have little equipment cabinets. Verizon used to go with these shelters years ago, this like prefab concrete shelter. You have a door, you walk in. Or now they're just going with these outdoor cabinets. They have a little fan in there. If it gets too hot, that might come on. That is such a non-issue. Mr. Shadell, you can see where he went out and took ambient measurements, both in day and night, and compares it to what is going on or what's proposed with the Verizon. I don't know a lot about noise other than having worked with Mr. Shadell over the years, and I think the correct statement would be if something is louder, if you're standing in an area and there's something louder than the ambient, or something louder than you over there somewhere, yeah, you'd pick up on that, but if it's less than the ambient, you're not going to hear it. And these are so far away that the fans are a non-issue. I had a direct abutter wondering, is that going to be a problem? No, it's not going to be a problem. The other source of sound is the generator. That only comes on in two instances. One, when we need it, like there's a power failure, a power blackout, this thing will kick on. First, there's batteries. So it's just like the network surges or flashes or goes out for a minute or two and comes back on. The batteries handle that. But then the thing's designed to figure out if it's been out for a while, then all of a sudden, okay, it'll kick on this generator. And that'll run until the power's restored. But so don't all of you, or not all, but many people in the neighborhood. Last time there was a power failure in my neighborhood, I wasn't aware of it till like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, I woke up and you could just tell there was something different, it was quiet, I don't know. And my wife said, I think we lost power, and it was winter, and we didn't want the pipes to be. So I went out, we have a generator out back, a manual, and I had to fire up. And when I went out there to fire ours up, I could hear in the distance, one in the back street or a neighbor down there, and I could hear that one over there. You could hear the other people's generators in the distance. As soon as I fired mine up, I couldn't hear that. I could just hear mine. So what I would suggest is this generator, if there were to be a blackout and that were to come on and you live nearby, yeah, you might hear that unless you fired your own generator up, in which case you won't. But the point of this now is public safety and to keep the communications lines going. And then when the power comes back on, that's shut down. The only other time we have to turn that on is once a week. We fire it up to test it and make sure it's ready to go. And that can be programmed to happen anytime. You say, like typically it's weekdays, between 10 and 2, or you could say, some neighbor could say, don't ever do it on a Wednesday because they have some group, whatever. It can be programmed anytime. It's not on the weekends, not in the evenings. Typically a weekday sometime. It comes on once a week to fire up to make sure it's ready to go, and it shuts down again. The next report is our real estate expert, who we asked him. Now he's another outside guy, and I said, I want to hire you to look at the situation and see, will the construction of this have any deleterious impact on people's properties around there. People are going to be afraid they're going to get less price if they go to sell or whatever. And he did a study. We went out, and if you look through that, you'll see there are examples right in town there on Mendel Road and then other places he found where he looked for, and this is a hard study to do, and he told me, you may not like my conclusions, in which case you still have to pay me. I said, I got it. You get paid no matter what. Give me your report. And his conclusions were, if you read this, that it's a non-issue because he's gone out and looked for matched pairs where you have a neighborhood with a tower and a similar neighborhood where you don't have a tower. And real estate appraisers look for comps. So if they're doing a certain size colonial, they'll try to find other similar size colonial, similar neighborhoods and so forth, or if it's a raised ranch or whatever. So he's gone out and looked at sales like that and compared it neighborhoods influenced by tower versus not. Has there been any empirical proof that prices have been negatively impacted? And he said no. Now that's counter to what many people's gut feelings might say. If someone doesn't like a tower, they'd be like, I can't believe that. That's got to be BS. How is that possible? Well, that's because if you feel that way, you have a bias, and you would be one of those buyers that may not want to buy a tower or a house for the tower. But the market is made up of this whole cross-section of humanity. For every person that would be offended by that, there are another half dozen that could care less or even welcome it. They wouldn't want to buy a house in a neighborhood that's in a dead zone or has a problematic coverage. I know that young kids are that way. Mommy and daddy don't, they're out shopping for a house, then they get back to where they're living now. Whatever you do, don't buy that house over there and whatever we visit because it was a dead zone. I couldn't connect with my friends. That is a big part of people's lives now is connectivity. I've said to this guy that, if Verizon would be willing to fund it would be interesting just to do a study to see if not having a tower and having a dead zone and living in a problematic coverage area, if that's like a negative on prices. I think that would be more something you could probably prove. But just to say, I'm going to have a problem selling my house. No, that I'll have a discussion with you about. To say, I think it's ugly, fine, that's your personal right. You'll never get an argument from me about personal taste. Under number 11 are the photo simulations. We flew a balloon. Now we do this whether a town wants one or not. You don't have any regulations in your bylaw, fine. We flew one anyway because how do we know how to make photo sims? How do I know how to write it up? Thus we get an accurate scale of it. So we went out on a very calm morning, and the reason this is a good way to do this, the problem with these advertised floats that some towns require is you can't predict 3 weeks from now, some Tuesday in October, what the weather's going to be like. So what we do is I get in touch with the engineers. I say, let's try to do this Acushnet balloon float. What about next week? Yeah, I don't know. Monday's looking kind of crummy. All right. And we'll talk to each other like the night before. How does tomorrow morning look? It looks like it's going to be flat calm. Fine. I have nothing to do. We'll meet out there. We get the balloon up early. He drives around. You can see where he drove around the neighborhood to take pictures. And this guy tried to find it. He's not trying to cover it up or sugarcoat it. His mission was find the balloon and scan in a tower. Make the worst case, don't make it look as worse as it could, but just, show it is what it is. So here's from the street, the most visible. There's the balloon, there's the tower, this thing back there. Now, I know we have neighbors across the street. I don't know how much tree cover you have in between, but see how there are all these trees? All you have to do is be like over there, and you're not going to be able to see it. If you're straight on, yeah, you're going to be able to see this thing in the distance. And you can see the addresses of all these locations. There's the balloon, there's the tower, there's the balloon, there's the tower, and so forth. So you see all those where we have shown that, yeah, you're gonna be able to see it from certain perspectives. And our point is, so what? It's a tower, like I said earlier, it's a tall pole, you hang antennas off it, you turn it on, your phone works. You have telephone poles all up and down the streets, you have wires, you have all this stuff. This is a piece of infrastructure that's part of a civilized society. We're not out in the Yukon territory. We're trying to provide Acushnet with good, reliable wireless connectivity. We have to put a tall pole in the area. Unfortunately, somebody's gonna see it from some perspective. And then the last one, the last tab that you all have there is number 12, these plans. You all have a half-size fold-out set of plans. And the first one is just the butters, 300-foot butters, radius and all that. But if we go to the next one here, this is the site plan where basically, it shows the topography and everything where we're going. Now, we had a wetland scientist come out and check this out. There's a little pocket over here which is not jurisdictional, but we set away more than 100 feet from it just to be completely safe. And we've got the river over here, and we're more than 200 feet away from it, so we're non-jurisdictional for any wetlands resources. And it worked out perfectly because there's already sort of a clear area back there that the landowner said this would be a good spot to put it. Our wetlands guide measured it out and concurred, yeah, that is a good spot to put it, and we don't have to remove, we don't have to do a lot of work to build back there. It's already set up for us, so we're gonna come in the same driveway, same curb cut. As I mentioned, it's a non-use. It's a utility, modern day version of a telephone utility pole that's gonna be in the backyard there, and once it's on, nothing much happens back there. And so the site plan is very simple. Here's a blow-up of it. It's a 50 by 50 area that underneath that is where that foundation is that I've told you about. And then that gets covered over, geotechnical fabric gets put down, and then there's crushed stone on top to make this nice clean area where we can put equipment. Our equipment's here, generator, and then we left this dead space in case, in the future, if some other carrier wanted to co-locate, we're set up for them. If they don't, that's fine too. We don't need that. There are some other tower companies that are folks that you've seen there, are these independent tower folks that are like a vertical real estate deal. They want to build the tallest thing and load it up with everyone. We don't need to do that. We want to get Verizon on the air. However, we're not averse to it. It used to be back in the day, the carriers, fought. Hey, we're competitors, we're not going to talk to you. That got hammered out on the corporate level now. So AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, all these guys on the corporate level have all worked it out so that they all, on the local level, there's no negotiating around. If Verizon wants to go on the T-Mobile tower over there, they fill out a form. T-Mobile wants to go on the 18 tower in New Bedford, they fill out a form. It's basically rubber stamped. But we built it to, built this infrastructure to be available, but we don't know if they're going to need it or not. This is our tower. That's why we're proposing a modest height. We're not proposing 190 foot or 150. We just want to get the job done for what Verizon's asking for. And it's, in our opinion, I know folks that don't want to see this thing don't see it this way, but we're providing a benefit to the town at no cost to the benefit. Wireless connectivity, it's like the Wi-Fi router for your neighborhood. It'll have no deleterious impact on property values, health. The only thing you can say is, okay, I think it's ugly, fine, I'll give you, I'm not gonna argue with you, because that's personal taste. I was asked, would you want one of these in your backyard? I said, absolutely. I live in a little tiny village lot. There's enough room, but I would put one in my backyard and take a picture, I would put it on my business card to prove I'm not a hypocrite. I have no problem with it. It's a pole. It's a tall pole. So for all the foregoing reasons, we respectfully request your approval of this simple application, and we hope to be able to construct it and get on air for the benefit of the residents. If there's any specific questions, I'd like to hear them.
Thank you. First, I'll ask if there's any questions for this gentleman while he's up here. Anyone with any questions want to come up? And
I have a quick question. You just said other companies can go
So
on.
could you state your name and address,
Kathy.
please?
Kathy,
Last name
D-Terra,
and address?
197 Leonard Street, right next door.
Okay.
So you're saying the other companies don't have to do anything but ask Verizon to put their service onto that tower?
So so I mentioned when...
They don't have to go through getting a permit to do
Oh,
it?
whatever, no, they have to do whatever they have to do there, but I'm saying that there's no negotiating and haggling around at the corporate level. Like Mr. Prosciutto, when he went out to look for a site for Verizon, if he had come upon an AT&T tower, his job would be quick that day. He'd go back and report back, hey, there's an AT&T tower there, and then someone at Verizon would call someone at AT&T, and they'd just do the deal, and we wouldn't be here wasting your time. There's no haggling around, and all that's what I implied.
But what I'm saying, other companies can come and add to this tower without having to go through this process?
They can. That is true.
Okay. So it can get bigger?
Because they're not putting up a tower.
Right.
You can hang an additional antenna without coming back to the Board of Appeals.
So what does that do about the radiation,
Well, as we were already shown the evidence that they could put 25 times as much and it wouldn't meet the minimum levels.
Still way below.
Yes.
They can't fit it on that tower. All the ones they could fit on that one tower bring it to 4% when they can go to 100%. So they would need 25 more towers to make it even an issue.
so what's...
And they couldn't
what-
put another tower. They could put another antenna, but not another tower.
But what's, say down the road, somebody wants to put another tower there, they have to...
They have to
go
come back
through this
here and
whole
start all
process.
over again.
And it doesn't affect being in the backyard of an elementary school?
We'd rather be right on the roof of
So
the
why
elementary
aren't you
school.
on the elementary school?
What?
So why aren't you on the elementary
It's,
school?
we prefer
Why are you in a
private,
private area instead of being at a...
just because of
School.
working with the municipality required RFP.
Does the school know
and-
that this tower's in their backyard?
I'm sorry?
Does the school know that that tower's going up
They've been noticed.
and they don't want it in their property, they'd rather
We
have
didn't talk to
residential?
them. We
Just concerned for the safety of the kids that go there, my grandchildren. No answer to that?
I can't look in your eye.
No, no answer to
So
that.
the answers to that he gave us in the report. The
I just think that it's
levels,
unsafe for children, and that's why the school's not even aware of this going on in their backyard. The school doesn't even know.
that's not true. Anything that comes to, you got the owner of the property standing at the back entrance there.
You got the what? The owner of what?
Well, he's, you have a selectman back there.
Okay,
This
so
this
does
stuff
the school
all
know that
goes through the
there's a tower?
town. Everybody's
The
aware.
school knows there's
All
a
right, does the
tower.
parents of all the children that go to that school know that there's a cell phone tower?
I'm a parent.
Nobody knows.
I'm a
I live
parent.
right next door and I didn't even know till Thursday
I'm a parent.
that that happened, that
I
I'm
know.
getting a tower in my backyard. And I'm abutting and a butter, and I didn't even know till Thursday that this was going
Kathy,
on.
can I
I
ask
don't know
if,
what the secret is.
but you're advocating that there's a health risk, right?
I do, yes, I do.
Okay, and we're
He
told
doesn't
by,
even get into the health thing, he has someone else.
he did.
Yeah, not really.
He didn't get into it because he's not the
I
expert.
heard it.
He's expert.
Well, there is a health expert, right? So I would like to hear the health benefits of having this tower in my backyard. Or non-benefit.
One of the
it.
things he said is that he's here to tell you and alleviate you from the health thing, but we're not even allowed to consider it because they have to go by specific guidelines. They have a tolerance of this, according to the federal guidelines. That's 100%. They're level. They're at 1%.
I get what
If
you're
they
saying, I
loaded
get
the whole
that.
thing up,
But
they
I've
got-
also gone online and researched some of this, and if you're in within quarter to half a mile of this tower, that you're more at risk of getting an illness, especially in children, getting a cancer or leukemia or something from the tower. I've read many articles about it.
Wouldn't holding a cell phone up to your head cause more problems
Listen,
than the
my cell
tower?
phone, I make what, 4 calls a day maybe? This tower is taking in everybody's services all day long.
You
all day
carry
long.
that phone with you 24/7. It's
All day long,
within 3
it's
feet
a
of
lot
you.
of people using that one tower.
know?
Put it in your backyard.
I don't have a cell phone. I haven't had one for 20 years.
I barely use a cell phone.
Well, they get caught.
Bobby, we did call the ITT guy from the school, and we let him know about the tower, and he said the school is hardwired in right now, and they're looking to put an 80-foot tower on the school.
So if they're looking to put a tower, why do we need another one?
Our tower's the
Cell phone.
benefit,
I think
cell
the
phone.
better question is if there's a hazard, why would they be looking to put a tower?
But he also said they were gonna let them know that the tower was coming in their backyard, and let the school committee know.
They are well aware, the school committee could have been here. The IT guy was notified 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're well aware that there is a tower going thousands of feet from the school.
Just for the record, Mr. and Mrs. McCooch speaking.
They're well aware of the,
If everybody could, as he said, just state your name and address when you speak.
203 Leonard Street, Macooch. They're well aware of the town IT fella for the town and the school IT man was notified, he
As
notified.
a neighbor, how come I wasn't notified?
You're not in a butter,
I'm an abutter to an abutter.
but you're in lane.
I'm like right there, it's right there in my backyard.
But there's 4 properties in between you.
There are rules for the abutters, they have to conform.
Yeah, two.
Hold on.
Mr. Chairman, if
So
I
how is
may,
your property divided up into
Guys,
two different?
you gotta go through,
There's 2 pieces of
It's
property.
2 pieces of property. Yeah, you're slick.
It's always been 2.
Les Jenkins, 187.
So you
Leonard
use your
Street.
property as an abutter and
Correct.
Lori and
Kathy.
him as
Kathy.
butters to abutters.
Please, I have
So
the
we're
meeting.
excluded from that whole,
You're not
getting
in
a
a
letter to
butter.
find out about this.
That's why you weren't notified, you weren't on a butter, if that's the way the town works, am I correct?
yes, all the abutters were notified.
Okay.
I have a series of questions, not to belabor the meeting, but I would, you've already answered some of them, sir. Could you tell us what other sites were considered, other than the one you proposed?
Yep. We looked at that existing guy tower, 221 Robinson, found title issues, some other issues, it's also too far north. We looked at 242 Robinson, owner wasn't interested, that's probably too far north. We looked at 112 Quaker Lane, where the Vertex folks were successful, was also too far north. 152 Quaker Lane, too far north. 17 Cushing Lane, we had some access issues with that. 1192 Main Street, no response. 1132 Main Street, tower, owner didn't want one there. 1149 Main Street, owner not interested. 700 Middle Road is the town, we'd have to go to an RFP. We didn't get any response there. That's a whole process that, it set us back a year and a half, 2 years. Even if we won we'd have to win the RFP. There's no guarantee of that. And then 19 Lake Street. So they didn't, that's where I was saying earlier that folks always try to tell us how to do our job and, and all that. We have some really experienced, very competent people that go out there. This is where you can see where we got the problem, where we're trying to prove, this is the blah, we can't deviate too far. As I said, we can go next door, across the street, but not too much farther away. And a lot of the places that they looked at were too far north and they were shot down. So yeah, we didn't just drive stake into the ground at the Macooches, we looked around.
But my concern is, when did you determine these other sites were too far north? Before you went out there or after?
After, we go out and it kind of goes on all at the same time. We send candidates back, they look at it, they analyze it, nope, too far north. It's a process that takes several months.
Now, another concern I have is the town property is not that far away, and if it was on town property, would not then the revenue from that be the benefit of everyone in town rather than one individual?
Yes, however, under mass laws, the board is aware, for the town to let space out, rent space out, there has to be an RFP, there has to be an RFP written up, and it has to be published, and people have to respond, and we'd have to win it. It's a long, convoluted process, and we're on private property now. Why would we want to, we've been working with this landowner for years, why would we want to drop him and start all over in a process that we may not even be successful on, we may not win the RFP. So we moved forward.
So our school has trouble feeding their kids lunches, and we're gonna give someone else the money when the money could go towards school lunches. Let's think of it that way. If you're gonna pay them, why not pay the school? Disperse the money for the kids at the lunch. That only makes sense.
So you guys
As
are
just
complaining
explained.
about, you guys are just complaining about that it's detrimental to the schools.
I don't want it at all.
If it's
I
gonna go
was
You
anywhere-
guys, but now you're talking about
I'm
putting it
the
on
one
town
complaining.
property closer to the school.
Well, he's saying the school
So-
wants to put one on the school. So, I don't get it. Why isn't the town, if it's gonna go, then why doesn't the town just take it upon themselves and put it on the schools? If everybody's gonna get stuck with it in the backyard, put the money
See,
in the use.
That's not
you just
guaranteed.
answered your own question. Because the town didn't do it, and these gentlemen need it, the quickest avenue for them to do it is the way they're doing it.
So
They're
the
trying
town
to run
didn't want it.
They're trying to run a business.
Yeah, the town didn't want it, is that what you're saying, Bob?
I'm not saying they didn't want it. I'm saying they didn't propose it themselves.
The school department has to come in front of you if it's anything over 65 feet. They're proposing an 80 or 85 foot. So they have to go through the same process.
It's the same exact process, of course it is.
Well, it appears to me that that was the path of least resistance for Verizon.
Correct.
They're in
Right.
business, it makes sense for them to
You
take
work
that.
for
Hey,
them.
David.
Absolutely, I
You know
did.
exactly
David.
the rules.
David, just,
Absolutely, I did, 35 years.
That's right.
I have another question, sir. When you say the pole is 150 feet tall, does that include the antennas?
yes.
It does, okay. I heard your response to the safety requirements, and I know that's largely controlled by the FCC. So at this point in time, I would ask that the board consider some things that have already been discussed, but some other things. That the height be limited to 150 feet. It'd be a monopole design. Low profile, closely mounted antennas. Plant and maintain in perpetuity non-invasive plantings around the fencing. And to preserve to the largest extent possible all existing native vegetation. Thank you.
I have a question now. Is that pole that he's suggesting not the pole that you have put forward? Sounded like, he said
150.
something about a monopole, 150 feet. Isn't that what you're asking
Yeah,
for?
150-foot monopole.
That's the pole that he suggested.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you look like sound like you were asking us to consider something smaller, and it sounds like what he's already
I
saying.
was asking you to consider those as contingencies to the permit.
Got it.
Also, I have a question. Public safety. They're offered a spot on that tower. Am I correct?
I haven't had any discussions with public safety.
Okay, all right.
Would you be open to it? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, please.
Mr. Makuchis.
If you could just tell everybody who you
Kevin
are.
Gass for Acushnet Board of Selectmen, 16 Down Drive. So Mr. Makuchis asked you the question, would you be open to offering that if you had the ability to put that antenna up?
Yes, we would.
And if public safety requested it from Verizon, would you offer that space on your pole?
Yes, and we'd have to execute an agreement that spelled out, it'd be for no dollar term, but it would spell out that if, for example, you, so if, for example, you had your antenna ready when we constructed the tower, our riggers could stick that up for you. But say you weren't ready and you wanted to go a couple of years later, you would have to have a licensed, insured rigger, we'd have to spell that kind of stuff out with the agreement. But the term, the rent would be like $1 or,
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I have a
Who would
question.
like to speak, pro or against?
Joe Amaral, 15 Golfview Road, across the street.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't have much say in this. They're protected by FCC. It is what it is. Unfortunately, it sounds like I'm gonna have to live with this thing above my house, whether it's what I want or not want. A couple of quick questions I had is this gonna have any impact on the school being used for med flight? Because it does get used quite a bit. I understand that is one of the sites that they do use.
I can answer that question. St. Luke's is now a trauma center, so we very rarely use MedFlight. And that probably would not be an issue because of their path, the way they fly in.
We have 3 other sites also.
MedFlight also requires a 100-foot by 100-foot area to land. As long as they have no obstructions within a 100-foot by 100-foot area, they can put down. They land on the highway, not too far away from other cell towers along the highway with no problems whatsoever.
Anyone else want to say anything? Please.
Danny Burgess, 209 Leonard Street, I'm the direct abutter. So as I looked at the property, I have all these papers that he has. The tower is 172 feet from my backyard. If you look at all these other property assessments that he did with market value and all that, they're 960, 1,000. None of them are even close to 172 feet.
I believe they
Look-
did it
look through the
on one on
papers.
Mendel Road that's right
No.
in the backyard, right?
Yeah, your house is over 350 feet away.
But I live in my yard, not just
Well-
in the house,
Okay.
right?
These are all measured from the houses.
My kids play outside every day.
Okay.
I'll double check. The one on Mendel Road?
I could be wrong. I believe when we were skimming through, they showed pictures of the house on Mendel Road that's right in front of
There's a lot of
the
pictures in there
tower,
where
and you
it's,
did comps on that.
it's
and
very
the
obvious.
same as the ones a block either way from it.
yes.
I tend to agree with the report, whereas if you live in that house and this comes after, you think it evaluates it, but for the buyer coming in, if it's the house they want, it really makes no difference.
Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Burgess, and Mr. Burgess, as you recall, I said, I can't.
773 feet from the 180 Mendel Road is 773 feet from the base of the cell tower. I'm 173.
Your lot line, yeah, you're 300 something.
It's my-
And you're also looking through trees at it, you know, that's like
I'm
out in the
looking
open.
at, yeah, I have other pictures, but you took pictures of the trees in July. In the winter, all those, you know,
Yeah, no, you're gonna see it.
I'm gonna
and-
see the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yes, you are.
There's always,
Yep.
Everybody is,
everybody in the neighborhood will.
everybody. And it's 102 feet away from the town. It's supposed to be 1.5 times, I believe, the height of the tower away from any, if this thing falls, it falls on your property.
I
It falls
actually
my
have
property.
a question on that myself too. That's the one question I do have, is, when we're looking at it, I don't know about 1.5, but I always look for 150 foot if it's 150. And it does look like 102 and 140 something.
Yeah, so there's no requirement in your bylaw. We go by what the rule book says, and we
Yeah.
don't have that requirement. So we kept it the full height off our neighbors, but the 102 to the rear, that's all woods owned by the town back there. So the towers are designed to fold them on themselves, not fall over straight.
That was my concern or question. I've only sat on this board for a couple of years, but I was the building commissioner and zoning officer prior. And I know we used to look at the length being the length. If you're 150 foot tall, you should be 150. So what's changed? And you're saying that tower is not gonna fall 150 feet away?
That's right.
How would it not? It's a
what's the-
metal monopole that would fall.
It's engineered so that there's a weak, they have the antennas right at the top, it's a fat pole that tapers as it goes. It's engineered so about 2/3 up is where the weak point would be. And
Okay.
if there were to be a failure, it would bend over. There's no way that it would come down, in the closest lot line, 102 feet, is again, woods in the back here. So any habitable area is well outside the full height.
And then also too, if it did fall, it would fall next to the wetlands, right? You said it was 200 and some odd feet away from the wetlands.
100 feet.
100 feet.
We're 200 feet from the
From the
river.
river.
And probably about 100 feet from a little.
So it could potentially fall.
144 feet from the wetlands. So I mean, even if it fell the way you're proposing it could, which you're saying it can't, maybe 6 feet of it could land in a little bit of wetland. I don't see how it could do damage, but.
I do have a question regarding that. Mike Ledger, 641 Middle Road. This particular type of tower, could you tell us generally what it's rated at for wind speeds that it can handle without sustaining a catastrophic failure?
I don't know, it would be whatever the Mass Building Code requires, and they change that all the time. We went from revision F to revision G, and that caused everyone to re-engineer everything. So whatever is the requirement of the Mass Building Code.
It would be at least 130 now.
Okay. What was your name, sir?
Sorry, Michael Ledger.
Thank you.
I'm using that voice.
Mr. Chairman, Bob,
Yes, sir.
I know you said that Verizon comes and checks it out every now and then, but was there ever a traffic study done?
I'm sorry, what kind of study?
Traffic study?
Traffic study.
For construction equipment coming and going and all that, no?
I don't believe they do one, but
No.
again, like any construction, you're gonna have a little at first, but we're told there's gonna be one car a month.
Yeah, that's what they're telling me, I get it.
Can I say something? Paul Freising, I live at 41 Kruger Street, but I also own Chloe's Countryside Kennel that's on 203 Leonard Street. It's a business, so there's traffic all the time. If you guys deal with it now, what's a little construction gonna do for,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
just
know how
curious,
long it
because
is.
it's studied on, that's all.
But like I said, it's a business on the property. At times, there could be 10, 12 cars in and out of that driveway within an hour. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with this? It's the way I look at it.
I'm not sure I'd look at it the same, that business is.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean,
Special
it's-
permit, and
But there is you know what I mean? It's
I'm
talking
not
about
siding
traffic,
with
but-
Bob or you, I'm just saying, no, if you're adding another 30 vehicles a day, there is a problem. This business
You're
is
renting a property
a business
from-
that's allowed because it's low traffic. But again, the short-term construction of the project isn't gonna overwhelm anybody, and then it's gonna be very little use.
How
Absolutely.
long would it take to build it?
I don't like to speak on behalf of the construction folks, but it's not very complicated, maybe 6 weeks. But basically, they have to form up the foundation to let it secure. So they may form it up and then leave for a while, then come back, so it looks like nothing's happening, but they're just waiting. But, you know, 6 weeks is weather dependent, supply chain, I'm not supposed to talk on their behalf, but it's very simple.
Yes, sir.
Paul Trahan, 1259 Main Street. Could you take a sense of the people that are here that are in favor of this project, such as myself, because we have a serious problem up in the north end of town on drop calls. I know some people are against it, but there's a lot of people that are for it, that are probably not here.
I don't disagree with you. I know personally, I live about a mile away from the tower, or maybe a little less than a mile in a straight line. We have no service halfway up Lake Street, we have no service halfway up Leonard Street, we have no service halfway up Peckham Road. I dropped Verizon and went for a new carrier because I had no service in my home. So I obviously know Verizon needs service in the area. I think what he's looking for is maybe a consensus of people in the audience for or against. Is that what you're asking for?
Well,
That could be helpful.
that could be helpful or not, but it's what it is. I think we just.
Well, I think what I tried
We
to
can
do.
discuss this all night. I've sat on that side of the table before, so.
I think what I've tried to do is listen to everybody who wants to
Exactly.
speak, so that I could get a sense for myself who's for and against. I've heard a small majority of close abutters against it, mostly concerns that I'm hearing. Well, I guess both, a little bit of it's visual and a little bit of it's health issues. I think I gotta believe the statistics and the stuff in front of me and say if they're allowed to do it at this level and they're 100 times less than that, it shouldn't really be a health issue. You know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but if they're allowed to do it at this level, 100 times higher, and this level's down here, I don't see where we can have a real health issue. Visual issues, I do understand. If you're right there, you're gonna look at it, and he went through all that. We tend to get over it, we see him as we go down the street. I don't know if I can see it from my house, but I am within a mile, I'm not worried about it. I am worried that, you know, again, I dropped Verizon, so it ain't gonna help me any, but it's gonna help everybody else who has the service. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could summarize this, in my own opinion, the FCC has made it so onerous from their rulings previously for local boards such as yourselves to control to a large extent what they do. It's very concerning for me. We have very little to say about it.
Correct.
In the bottom line. The only thing I feel we could do is ask Verizon to meet us halfway with the items I mentioned before.
Is there any items on his list that we aren't doing already? Because, again, the 150 foot's there, the other stuff's there, we're told they're not in either wetlands, so I didn't hear any plant issues or any of that
Oh,
stuff.
no, he answered the question about the wetlands. My concern were the,
You're talking about
A
him not
monopole
doing any
design.
extra area. I mean, we're told it's 50 by 50.
no, I'm not concerned about the footprint. I was concerned basically about the monopole design.
That's
Can
what
we agree
is
on that?
proposed. He's only allowed what he's proposing.
Low
He can't change
profile.
it to a different tower.
Is that what's designed currently?
Correct. That's what we're looking at. That's what
I'd
they're
like to
asking.
hear from this gentleman.
150-foot monopole, we're not low profile in the sense that the antennas are on a platform. On a platform here, they're not flush. And then he also suggested non-invasive species. We're not proposing anything at the base because it's already back there in kind of this wooded area. We just figured we'd let it be. We're not proposing any plantings whatsoever back there.
It would make it more aesthetically pleasing to the people who can view it, would it not?
If it was a low-profile design that you're talking
And
about,
closely
what is the issue with the
mounted antennas.
low-profile design? Does it just cost more? Does it not effective for the antennas?
We'd have to take up 2 mount heights for ourselves then, because now we're trying to cram all the antennas into one spot and it doesn't work. We'd have to take up another spot below here, you know, put our antennas here, have antennas here, and all that would do is take away the ability for somebody else to take that spot, which is fine. We're doing this for ourselves. You know, so if the board would approve this tonight under that condition, we would accept that, taking 2 mount heights and then bringing the antennas in for ourselves.
I don't see any real benefit there.
I'm sorry?
I don't see any real benefit there.
The only benefit is the 4 or 5 abutters who are very concerned just with the visual of it. Maybe it's a little less visual.
Hardly.
Right?
The later down the road, other carriers can come down and add on to that pole.
They could, but we would have taken up one of those spots for
No, if you
ourselves.
do it the original plan right now,
And then down the road,
you know how you see the other towers you showed with the different panels
Yeah, that would be another spot for someone.
for somebody else?
So if they came along, they'd be like,
If
oh,
they-
that's gone, they'd have to go
if they
below.
had to do the same mounting, they would take up 2 more spots, and
Yeah.
then you would, again, I switched from Verizon because I couldn't get the service. Now, if my carrier decides they want to go there, it's lower and lower and less effective.
Yeah,
So initially, the pole was just a top platform, but future down the road, it could be 4 or 5 panels down.
I mean, we don't know, it can't predict,
Well,
we
right.
just make it, we're just stating that we're gonna construct it so that it's physically capable of that, whether someone comes or not, we have no idea.
With all due respect, every cell tower I've seen is loaded with antennas.
Yep.
You can count on it
Yep.
in the future.
No, I wouldn't disagree that there'll be 3 carriers on
And
that
then you
pole
get
at
10
one time.
vehicles a month instead of 1.
So I guess my question is, would this gentleman be amenable to those suggestions as contingencies to the permit?
I think we've heard that already, the answer to that.
And that includes plant and maintain in perpetuity, that means forever, non-invasive plantings on all sides of the security fencing.
Wouldn't that bring more attention to the tower?
I don't think we really need that the way it's.
Natural growth, more attention?
Surrounding that one
Claiming
tower?
you can't see it now.
I don't,
So it's all woods, you know, basically we're sticking it back in there, it's
Yeah.
surrounded on 3 sides by natural vegetation. The only thing that would be visible is this front from.
thank you, Les. We have your suggestions. Mr. Tran, you had something else?
Well, it was mentioned earlier that a lot of people weren't aware of this hearing, and that's probably true. You know, there wasn't a reverse 911 call made or anything like that. So if there were, there'd probably be a lot more people here in favor of it than just the abutters that are against it. So I'd like the board to keep that in mind when they vote.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, I'm not against it. Quite frankly, there's not a damn thing we can do about it with what the FCC has set for grounding. I'm just trying to make it as amenable to the people in the neighborhood as possible.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So I had a civil engineer look at the plans. And he says that the lot that they are proposing the cell tower does not conform to the current zoning relative to their frontage. building inspector made an opinion relative to the non-confronting nature of the lot.
I don't believe they have to conform to zoning bylaws is the issue. This isn't a home they're putting up, they don't have to comply with, 150 foot of frontage or 150 by 150, it's a it's a special permit for a tower here, it's not a building permit, so to speak, for construction of a new home, doesn't fall into the same bylaws.
It's a
As the building
non-use.
inspector taking a look at it, I can't answer that.
It's a
Then he also
non-use, it's a
recommended-
utility structure.
Yeah.
Like
He
you
also-
see, utility, high voltage line stanchions, it's,
Like he's saying, it's much like a pole that you have your electric coming down the street. It can be anywhere. They have to come here to get some kind of compliance and make sure that, we have a little control over it. But as everyone stated, there's very little we can do to move it along, or stop it from moving along, as long as there's no major issues. But zoning is not one of the issues. Doesn't have
Now,
to
also,
be.
he recommended that the zoning board hire their own consultants to review the project.
Thank you. You gentlemen have any other questions? Any input, either way? Anyone want to discuss this?
I just,
Move it in any way?
I read the United States Code, the applicable section to this, and I think you've demonstrated that there are areas in the north that lack sufficient wireless coverage. And I don't think that the board can take an adversarial position to this, because in effect, would it not be prohibiting wireless coverage? Or essentially doing that. So I'm not so sure that if we took a negative position to this, then we would be running afoul of federal law.
So the only thing, unless anybody else has anything to add, the only thing I'm going to suggest the board consider or not consider is any of the add-ons. We've heard from Mr. Dakin. Again, I don't think any of them change anything. I don't think they're going out there and destroying the woods. I don't think there's gotta be anything in writing that we have to follow up on and be out there looking at species of plants and stuff. They obviously can't go destroying any wetlands or anything anyways.
I think the presentation was excellent too. Yeah. To make a motion, we put this to a vote.
There's a motion to put it to a vote. There's a second.
Okay.
All in favor of voting?
Voting? In favor of voting, yeah.
Aye. Okay. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay or nay?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay, oh.
We got a nay. I'm a yay. I do believe we have a issue because
There's only 4 of us.
there's only 4 of us. So,
Mr. Leonard, what is your, I didn't hear you have any questions about it, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple things, you said about personal things. Well, personally, that street's native to my family, for one.
I'm
It's
sorry?
just not my street, it's everybody's street, it's just, if it was in my backyard, saying it's one of those things, I wish it wasn't theirs either. In other words, it was hidden so nobody else could see it. But due to that, and I drive down that street every day. And I look up Robinson's Road, I see them all. It just, I just can't do it at this time. I have a nice monument I built across the street where the blended wheelhouse was. It's gonna be directly across the street. Not that we go there and everybody sits there and has big picnics there or anything, but that's one of the reasons personal.
now I find myself in a conundrum. I believe, possibly, we should have at least let you know first off that
Upfront, yeah.
we're a 4-member board this evening because we have a guy out with COVID. You need 4 members and we have one. I don't know the exact law on this. I don't want to pretend I'm an attorney. I do think you should probably ask for a continuance I know we just voted too, so that's probably an issue as well.
Well, did you vote, or vote to approve?
We voted to approve this just now because he asked us to put forward the vote, and we got 3 yays and 1 nay, and you need 4 yays.
Okay,
to
so
move
you've
forward on
denied
special
us.
permit. So I guess we're in a denial state at the moment, which,
With less than full board. though.
with less than a full board. So I'm not sure the exact,
I just have a question.
yeah.
Would the member that's out with COVID be watching the meeting?
I have no idea.
Because if
I-
he had participated, if he had watched it, he could probably vote.
I think if the members showed up for the meeting, we would have had 5 members for the other 2 and none for this, because the other member both works for Verizon and is in a butter.
The person that has COVID?
Yes.
Well, if you voted to deny it, you just write your decision up and file it with the town clerk, and we'll take the proper actions on our end then. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's conclude our business, but we have not adjourned, gentlemen. We need a motion to adjourn. If you have any other business? We've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
We're in a real